So in today's video, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a real simple ball striking concept that will take your game to the next level. Let's get stuck into it. This video and concept has been inspired by a recent student of mine, Steve. Now, Steve and I started working together a few weeks ago, and we'd had a couple of lessons and then we went out on the golf course. And what I saw with Steve is typically what I see with all amateur golfers, a lack of ability to control the low point. Now, the low point, if you like, is basically just how the club is striking down on the floor. And what we want to do is we want to try and make sure that the club is striking beyond the ball. So this basically means if my golf ball is sitting on the fairway here, I want to try and make sure the club doesn't come down before. I want to make sure the club hits the lowest part of its journey downward past the golf ball. And that's what I mean by that low point control. So Steve couldn't do this. So when we first played, the problem was the club's coming down early. This gives him inconsistency with contact. But the other problem is he couldn't really control or stabilize the club face. Okay, so if you imagine I'm setting up here, club face is pointing in this direction. But if the club comes down too early, by the time it meets, where's it pointing? Left for a right-handed golfer. What was Steve doing? Aiming right. And then the problem was it was almost impossible to talk about anything from like a course management perspective because Steve was aiming in the wrong direction to compensate for the poor hit and impact position, and it was difficult. But we reflected, we had a lesson, we worked on it, we went back out on the golf course and it improved dramatically. And the thing that I noticed that impressed me so much with Steve was his practice swings, which is where this concept has come from. So what I've got here are 3 tee pegs, which are roughly distributed by about a club head's distance aside, right? So if you imagine, I'm just going to put 3 golf balls down as well alongside of all of these so you guys can see quite clearly exactly what it is that I'm referencing. Now, as I get set up, like so, can you see the way that the first tee peg, the one furthest to the right hand side, is right in the centre of my stance? Okay, the next one, club head's distance further forward, club head's distance further forward, fine. So what we're basically saying is we have to find a way to strike an inch past that golf ball, okay? But the way in which you're going to do that is we need to learn how to do things like rotate, and we also have to make sure that our hands are moving towards the target. So Steve started with this ball position because he moved off the golf ball, because he got stuck, he was hitting like so. Okay, so what I needed Steve to do was to figure out a way to keep his head more centered and then to basically start rotating through the ball. However, that's quite a lot to think about. Keep your head still, rotate, get your hands forward. An easier way to do it is just do some practice swings. So if I get set up here to the first tee peg, so the red tee peg that's sitting on the ground, and I make a swing where I keep my head still, and then if I sort of come down, I should be able to get the club to strike down on the back of the golf ball, even without any real rotation. So if I do that again, no real rotation, but I can still get the club to strike back in the ball, and then as the club swings through, it's now lifting up. So that's fine, and that will do. But if you want to take your game to another level, what you now need to do is you need to start by the same tee peg, but you're going to try and hit the one that is a club head's distance to the left. Now, there's a couple of other skills you're going to need to do that. One, you're going to have to keep your head still in the backswing. 2, you're going to have to rotate your body to start the downswing position, because the more open my chest is, the more this left shoulder moves back and behind me. And see the way that brings the hands. So if I don't move my chest, I can't get the club down without using my hands. It will hit here and lift. If I turn, my shoulder moves. Look at me now. I can now get the club to hit that second tee peg, okay? And that's like a big thing, okay? And that would make a big difference. So I can set up here, turn, and as you're looking down, you can just concentrate on seeing where that club is hitting the ground. Now, I'm not saying you have to take it any further than that one, but you could, okay? Now, if I got set up here, and I now want to make sure that I swing back, I rotate, and if at the same time I really concentrate on pushing my hands forward as well, that's going to give me the ability to strike the ground opposite my lead ankle. Now, even if this is something that you don't end up actually physically doing when you play golf, but if you can treat it as a drill and an exercise, it is exactly what you want to be doing. So instead of going down the range and just hitting balls doing the same thing, if you took this concept and you tried to strike there, now you're talking, because you can see the more rotation, the more I keep my hands moving forward, the more it encourages me to stay over the ball, and the more I can strike like so. And then you can play around with it, so then you can start hitting some shots. And what I would suggest is you know, you can be a little bit of a hybrid between the two. So maybe position the golf ball in between that one and that one. But the way I want you to do it, keep the club head in the same position, okay? Move the ball further forward, and again, that will just encourage you to rotate through the golf ball, as I'm demonstrating there. And then you can progressively move it a little bit further forward. So if I move the ball a little bit further away from the tees, so they don't jump up on the vibration of the hip. So you can see the way that I can move that golf ball a long way forward in my stance, and I can still stay there, and I can still, look where that one is now, outside of my lead ankle, up, and then turn through the golf ball. So a little bit clean, maybe a little bit of a test, but this is a really good drill, something to break you away from the norm of just doing what you ordinarily do. It made a massive difference to Steve. It'll make a massive difference to you guys. I'll see you soon.